a lot of people, they're out there looking for something for their gut. They may have heard of something called leaky gut. Can you explain what a leaky gut is and how does someone know if they have it?
Gluten actually is one trigger for leaky gut. I have a great infographic in my book, The Gut Smart Protocol, about what leaky gut is and what it's like. But basically, I use a coffee filter analogy, thinking of your gut as a coffee filter. It's basically designed to let good stuff through and keep the bad stuff out. That's in simple terms. We're breaking down our food, and in that environment, there are all these bacteria, parasites, potentially yeast, fungus, that are potentially could invade your body, but your gut lining is keeping all of this stuff out. So if you think of like a pour over coffee, like you go to an artisanal coffee shop and you get one of those nice pour over coffees, the coffee grounds inside represent the food, the digesting food particles with the bacteria, your microbiome. And as that gets filtered through that coffee filter, on the other side, you just want to get this beautiful, clean, coffee scented water, right? That's the equivalent of just getting all the nutrients, the amino acids, the minerals, the vitamins from your food while keeping everything out. Now, say I take that coffee filter and now I take a needle and I start poking a whole bunch of holes in that coffee filter. And I just keep poking holes and keep poking holes, put the coffee filter there, put the coffee grounds in, pour the hot water through. Now what's going to happen with those coffee grounds?
They're going right through.
Well, that's what happens when your gut is leaky. Things that shouldn't get through. Partially digested protein molecules that your body doesn't recognize as food, actually thinks of it as a foreign invader, thinks of it as a bacteria or virus, and then attacks. They've even found bacterial DNA in the blood of people with leaky gut. You can actually trace that in people's blood. So leaky gut, once your gut becomes leaky, it's allowing all these inflammation provoking substances to get through your gut lining. And it's usually, this is the domino effect. You start with a dysbiosis, an imbalance between good and bad bugs in the gut. You lose the homeostatic effect of the good bacteria, which are helping to maintain that semi-permeable border. You get leaky gut. Leaky gut allows the floodgates of inflammation to start opening up in the body. And then you get all of these downstream problems. You start gaining weight in the middle. You start packing on fat. You're trying to lose weight, but you hit a plateau and your body, you're just wondering, like, I'm doing everything I used to do, but I can't lose weight. Well, you got to look under your nose. You've got to look at your gut. You probably have leaky gut, and that's preventing you from dropping those pounds. I've seen it so many times. But also the brain, you know, the way the brain functions, your skin, your immune system, because the gut is command central for immunity. It affects all of these things. Your predisposition to autoimmunity has to do with whether your gut is leaky or not.
I want to go a little bit deeper into what you just said about, autoimmune issues, because that's one thing. And I think I've shared with you this story as a friend, but for anybody listening, I fought what doctors, dermatologists thought was psoriasis. They were never quite sure after 5 or 6 biopsies, just these recurring rashes for like 20 years. All the creams in the world couldn't, and pills in the world never did anything for it. And ultimately, I started researching gut health and learning more about my gut, and learned that there were certain foods that were inflaming my gut and leaking through, specifically wheat and gluten, or sorry, I should say wheat, gluten, which is kind of the same thing, and then soy, which is also gluten. And so I cut those out, and all of a sudden it went away. And I was shocked after so many years of treatments that all it took was some work on my gut to get rid of these. How often do you see that? How often have you seen people clean up their gut and they're able to resolve, one of these autoimmune, or long-term skin issues?
All the time. And also actually, frankly, surprised, because not just people that I've worked with, but I've just gotten written on social media, people who use the program in my first book, Happy Gut. One person had been to multiple dermatologists, doctors. They told her that her rosacea just had to be treated with antibiotic ointment. She also had hives and urticaria. She discovered my book, changed her diet. She had been living with it for, I think, over 7 years, and going to doctor, just being treated with topical remedies. As you know, like most doctors are just going to tell you, oh, it's a skin issue.
Yeah.
So we're going to treat it here on your skin, but no one's really talking about the gut skin connection. She did the program and reversed it, and years later, it's never come back.
Wow.
And it
That's
just has to
impressive.
do with, like, there's so many associations between what's happening in your gut microbiome. It's not just about avoiding those foods. It's about understanding that the foods are a trigger, but the reason that they're a trigger is because your gut is leaking. Now, there are receptors in the lining of your gut for gluten that when gluten binds to those receptors, it actually triggers the release of zonulin, a signaling molecule inside the cells that line your intestine that basically tells those tight junctions, there are these connections between the cells that are like these Velcro-like connections. When zonulin increases inside the cell, it tells the connections, you got to loosen up. Let's open up the floodgates. Gluten actually is one trigger for leaky gut. It doesn't matter if you're normal, if you have celiac disease, if you have non-celiac gluten sensitivity. You're more susceptible if you have autoimmune disease like celiac, and you're a little bit less susceptible, but still a lot, if you have non-celiac gluten sensitivity, which is what I have. And even if you're normal and you think, oh, I can eat wheat, I never feel bad, I'm fine. At a microscopic level, it's causing a slight increase in gut permeability that if you think about it over a lifetime, eventually it can lead to some sort of chronic degenerative disease.
And what type of diseases could occur from that?
So the germ-free mice eat the poop of the Alzheimer's mice, and then they looked at their brains, and the germ-free mice that were exposed to the poop of the, in other words, the gut microbiome of these mice also develop beta amyloid plaques.